how it bounces?
It looks like.
Hi, everybody. This is Michelle Gibson Webb with Bob Rewards Club. And we've got Minister Toya Woodland here. And today we are talking about domestic violence, the Fear No More bill. Okay. And Toya Woodland, I'm going to give it over to you.
Hi, everybody. This is Minister Toya Woodland. And as you know, I am running for the 5th Congressional District in Minneapolis, in Minnesota. But today I want to focus more on domestic violence. Domestic violence is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's near and dear to my family's heart. Being a survivor of domestic violence, I felt that it was imperative that we make laws that are stronger around domestic violence. What I do know is that 58% of women who are in domestic violence situations end up returning back to their abuser because they have nowhere to go. 7% live in their cars. The rest, they just end up homeless. So, or drug addicted. So today I want to talk about how we, the things that happen during domestic violence, the shame, the guilt, when in sexual abuse, and when that has started for some of us, and the feelings that go into it, and in the physical, emotional, spiritual, mental aspect of sex of abuse. Hey, Delia, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Hi, Delia. Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you, Bob.
Yep. We're getting ready to tell who everybody is in just a second, but she's just kind of going into the beginning of what we're going to talk about right now.
So I am. Yeah. So this is a very sensitive subject for me. Well, it's not as sensitive as it used to be, but it's a very emotional subject for a lot of people, and it's very dear to my heart. And I felt like it was imperative that when I get to Congress, that I create a bill, even before I get to Congress, that I create a bill that would help women who are in domestic violence situations and increase stiffer penalties for perpetrators of domestic violence. Now, let me say this. Let me disclose this. I am by no means an advocate for jail. I have fought against mass incarceration and mass suspensions and anything that was punitive for our people where they may be able to get help. However, abuse, when it comes to physically attacking or hurting someone else, I believe that there should be consequences for one's actions. So we're going to talk about that also, and along with therapy. We're going to talk about that also. I want to introduce my guest today. My guest is Delia, Delia Elliot, and Delia is going to tell you a little bit about her organization and what it is that she does. Hey, Delia.
Hey, hello. Thank you for having me on here this evening. Well, this thing is working right. Okay. Well, I have an organization called I Am Her Voice Ministries, and it gives voice to those who doesn't have the courage to speak out against domestic abuse. I am a survivor. So I turn my negative around into a positive to reach out to other women, to empower them, to uplift them and build them, to get them back on track with living a life after the abuse or even while they're going through. It's a place where they can come and have a solace and a safe place to speak out, a safe place to, to share their story, even give them that platform to do so. So I just kind of give them the tools to build. To empower and to rebuild.
Oh, that's great. We also want to thank Michelle Gibson Webb, who is the owner of Bob's Rewards Club, and for the platform that she has given us. And she's also my campaign manager, everybody. So if you want to get in touch with me, reach out to Michelle, and Michelle will, you can really just reach out to me. But if there's something that you want to do, something you want me to do, I always try to run it past her first. I am more than accessible to just about everybody.
Right.
So I want to dig into this, and it's not for the sensitive. So if you if there are children around, or I just want to say maybe you might want to be off to yourself or in another room. But I want to start off with where I believe abuse starts. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. That was my mistake. Go
Okay.
ahead. I'm listening.
So for me, I believe that a lot of young women in the Black community, I'm talking about in the Black community right now, experience child molestation growing up. And in our communities, it was what's done here stays here. What happens in this house doesn't leave this house. So in my generation growing up, and it might have been in all communities, I'm not sure because I only came from one, but I was afraid to share with anyone what had happened to me as a child. It was only when I was an adult that I was brave enough to tell my grandmother what had happened to me at the hands of a cousin. And it was because I believed that if I shared what happened to me, I believed it was my fault. That for some reason I asked for this. For some reason, if I'd have been a good little girl, or if I'd have did something different, that this wouldn't happen to me. Or if I told someone, I would get in trouble. So it was only until I was an adult that I was brave enough to even share what had happened to me and confront my abuser after many, 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 many years. So that's where the abuse cycle started with me. I think that inevitably broke my self-esteem and broke my confidence and told me and sent a message that if you love me, you're going to hurt me. Hey, Rhonisha, welcome. It's good to have you.
Hi.
Can
All
you
right.
hear me, Rhonisha?
And she's on mute.
Oh,
She need to unmute her mic.
I did it. Okay. Oh, unmute. Unmute.
Okay.
Hi.
Yes, go. Hey, how are you? It's good to see you. We were just talking about getting into it. Go ahead and introduce yourself right quick. We can't hear you. I can't hear her, Michelle.
We can't hear you, Rhonisha. Why don't you check out your controls? Unmute yourself.
So she's unmuted, but now we can't
We'll
hear
go
her.
ahead and let you put that out. Let me remove you for now and we'll bring you back. Okay. All right. So go ahead, Minister Toya. You were saying that as a child, so this led into the abuse.
Yes,
of
the cycle.
Because, okay.
Yeah, because of the low self-esteem. And I believe that if you didn't hurt me, or if I wasn't hurt, if it didn't hurt, it wasn't love, I guess. Because my abuser always told me that he loved me. I'm your cousin. I love you. I wouldn't hurt you, but yet you hurt me. So it did something to my self-esteem, my self-confidence, and I always found myself in these relationships where there was if there was no abuse going on, then something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Inevitably, I ended up in a marriage where I was being abused, and I was being abused and suffered. Became disabled at the hands of my abuser.
Okay.
But I know today that, and I was embarrassed because I was not only was I a minister at the time, right, or going into my ministry at the time, but I'm who wants to share that? I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to tell my friends. Delia was my best friend at the time. We talked about everything, and she never knew. I never shared that with her. It was and thank God for deliverance and getting my voice and understanding who I am and whose I am, and able to know that I don't have to accept less than what God would want for me. But I want to let Delia talk a little bit, tell you a little bit about herself and her story, and then we'll just dive into some questions that we have here.
It was great just listening. However, I can relate to what Minister Toya is talking about when it comes to domestic abuse. As a overcomer, a survivor of abuse, I It's a lot of feedback. Do you know why?
You hear the feedback?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably your speaker might be too close. Here, let me see. Okay, try it now.
Yeah, but yeah, I can just relate to some of the things, yeah, about being a it's okay now, about being a victim of domestic abuse. I was a victim at well, I became a victim at 17 years old, but before that, I realized that I had been in domestic abuse way before then, because being raised by family members, I've experienced a lot of things that a youngster should not have experienced at that time. So with that said, most of the time, um during most of the time when you are um shown that type of thing growing up, when you have experienced domestic abuse, you get into a relationship most likely outside of that resembles the same thing that you experienced. So I got with a man who physically, mentally, and verbally abused me. And so yeah, so it was very embarrassing. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to share it. It's very shameful. And
Mhm.
that's what it was for me. So I didn't have an outlet either to go and talk to anybody about it. I didn't know of any resources. And that's why it's very important now, for if you are experiencing an abusive relationship, make sure you have a support system. Make sure that you have um, resources. So that's why I say I turn my negative into a positive, so that I can share information with other people and give them resources and bring awareness about domestic abuse, awareness about it, because I didn't know that I was even in domestic abuse when it was going on. I didn't know until I got out of it. So hopefully that's kind of helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. When you say we don't know, because we see things on television about a man just coming home and just instantly start beating on his wife and stuff. So when that doesn't happen like that, we're like, am I in this is maybe we just had a fight, or maybe it was just going to be that one time, or maybe he's not going to do it anymore, or it doesn't seem like the abuse that we're shown on television, like
But the thing about it is, it's recognized. Well, for me, it was when I was a youngster and I experienced abuse, whether it was sexual abuse or whether it was being put down and told I would never amount to anything. Or so when I, so it was I was conditioned to it. So that was something I was conditioned to. So when I became an adult, a young woman with no self-esteem, with no confidence of being anything and anybody, um, like I said, I gravitated towards someone who had those tendencies, those same things that I've already experienced. So it's very hard, to recognize. And if you don't have the sense, or to know that, hey, this isn't where I should be, or like you said, you thought it was love. You know what I mean? I thought that he loved me because it's the same thing I've experienced growing up. He told me I would never be anything. Nobody would never want me. As a kid, I was told the same thing. So I'm like, this just got to be love. It's just resembling everything that I have received as a youngster. So yeah.
and then watching my parents go through what they went through, the physical violence. I watched my father take a shoe. Now, I loved my daddy. Let me say that. Of the parents, that he was the one that I gravitated towards. He never harmed me. But he never put his hands on me. But I saw him take a high heel shoe and beat a dimple into my mother's face, a permanent dimple with a high heel shoe. And but he loved her. And I couldn't understand how you could love someone and want to hurt them that bad. What could someone that you could do? What is it that someone could do to make you that mad or that angry that you so-called love? Um, and I would witness this every weekend. I could never keep a doll house because they would always fight and fall on my doll house. And I remember this growing up. It sounds funny. You had those Barbie townhouses.
Yeah.
I was getting a Barbie townhouse every month because every time I looked up, they were breaking my Barbie townhouse, right? So, and as seeing this growing up, you're right. We become conditioned to think this is what it's supposed to be. This is what love is supposed to be. But being a child of God and being a minister and becoming coming face to face with the word of God and accepting it as his word, I know now that he never meant for me to be harmed in any way. Like he never meant for people to hurt me. I didn't send me here to be abused. He didn't send me here to be hurt. Now I went through some situations and we can't choose our family members, right? We can't choose who our families were, but I do not believe that God intended for me to be intentionally put myself into a situation let me say that, where I am being abused or being hurt, because he loved me so much. And the God that said I came to give you life and give it to you more abundantly would not want me to be in a situation where my life is being snipped out minute by minute, moment by moment, right? But it took a long, like Vicky Winans say, long time before I realized that I deserve better. Because I'd already been told, like Delia said, I'd always been told that I was going to be nothing. Because my mother was being abused, she took it out on me, and she abused me, and she would say, yeah, she would say, you're not going to be doing anything. It's like one day I remember sitting on 63rd and Drexel. We were in the car waiting on my father to come outside. And this very big man, he was really big. And he was a big guy. And my mom said, that's the kind of man you're going to end up with. And as an 8-year-old, that registered in here, right? So all of my life, I tried to find the opposite. Like I could not, psychologically, no matter how crazy, how bad they treated me, I did not want to end up with that guy that she pointed to on the street, who would have probably been really good to me, right? And he looked happy with his fiance, whoever he was with. They looked happy together. But my mom made me believe that he was not as standard. And if I'd have been a little older and a little wiser, I'd have realized that this is coming from a woman who's getting beaten every other day. You might want to be with him. I would have been able to see that, but I couldn't see that. It was being conditioned and having, like telling me I was fat and ugly and things of that nature. So even today, I'm real conscious about my weight. I'm real, if I see one bulge or one thing out of place, I want to exercise. Or I went through a stage where I would throw up my food as a teenager because I thought I didn't want to be fat, because they told me that they always call me fat. So I remember how that conditioning, as Delia says, takes effect on our lives, and how it manifests in everything that we do, and everything situation of my life, that it manifested itself.
Yeah, and usually when children are exposed to it, they grow up to have low self-esteem and they have no confidence. They grow up to behave, recklessly and things of that sort. Especially if they don't get any help, they choose the wrong mate. They have they have problems making the right decisions. They suffer from PTSD, anxiety, something that I am still suffering from today and have to go and get help for. But so it's really important, that we get the help. We seek out the help that we need now, for ourselves and for our children, if we have experienced those, have been a victim or experienced domestic violence. So yeah.
Well, let's look at the history of women, like in this country and just worldwide. I
Yeah.
mean, how women have been treated like they're somebody else's property, their husband or boyfriend's property. And you still have that ingrained in a lot of men, period. Black, white,
Absolutely.
Hispanic, they
Especially Christian men.
yes.
Yeah,
And
let's talk about the men. Yeah. Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, well, it goes back. You have to go to the root of it. It goes back to, like I said, being conditioned, and we have to think about what that man, that boy has, been through to make them even want to show their rage in that way. Been put down as well so many times, and where that's the way that it manifests. and they probably had a father that did the same thing to their mother, or
Mm-hmm.
feel like, okay, well, this is the way that I'm going to show that I am in control, or this is the way that I'm going to show that I am the head of this relationship. You know what I mean? But that's not the proper way to do it. And it's about power and control. Men have lost their control going way, way back. So it's like, how do I get my control back? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they use it on that person that they're closest to, and that's mostly in intimate relationships. So
Domestic violence is a worldwide, multicultural issue, and I want to say that it affects one race more. I can't say it affects one race more than the other race, because there are men in high-powered situations that they are frustrated at work and they come home and they take it out on their wife.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Whether they be black or white. And then we have African American men or Hispanic minorities who have to feel the pressure of society, and then deal with society, and then they'll come home and they'll take it out on their wives because they have not been properly taught how to deal with their emotions. My ex-husband will tell me today that he was not properly taught how to deal with his emotions, because he didn't watch his father abuse his mom, and he did have a father that put him down, and he did want to seek one of his dad's approval. So he will tell me today, we'll talk today, and he'll say, well, I did not know how to express myself. I did not know how to express my feelings. I thought that if I didn't control you, that you were going to leave me, or whatever it was. I ended up leaving anyway. But so it just, what you're saying is absolutely true. And for a lot of men, let's talk about a lot of black men, because let's go take it back to slavery. As a slave, a black man would be dragged out and before everybody, and strung up and beaten by the slave master, to let him know and everybody around him know that he has no control. No
Did
control.
we lose Bob?
Huh?
Did we lose Bob? I can't see her.
Yes, she's gone. She'll be back.
No, I removed myself from the stream, so I should have mentioned that. But I am following along. People are commenting. We do have viewers on Facebook. We're streaming on 5 channels right now.
And if you have questions,
and I wanted to mention Charlotte. Thank you guys for joining us on Facebook. Sherry Young, Charlotte Metcalf. I think that's your cousin, Toya.
Yes, hey, cuz.
And she's got 2 comments here for you. She said, "You great because you're talking about it. Me, I'm 52 and I'm still not over it." Okay.
Wow.
And then she said, all cause I never knew this happened to you. So
we got to talk.
So when I see the comments, I'll pop back in and give them to you guys.
And if there's any questions, feel free to ask any questions, anything you want to know. We don't want to just dominate it with our stories. And what we want to do is let people know that their help is available. Mm-hmm. And you have spiritual, physical, actual help that is available, and right. We sharing our stories and sharing the emotions and around it. We're going to talk about in a few minutes why women stay. Why we stay in these issues. But right now, we're just talking about the conditioning that goes along. This starts early. I didn't wake up one morning and say, "Ooh, I think I'm going to go and get me a man who gonna beat me up every day," And it wasn't every day. Let me say it wasn't every day. And that's what confused you also, because it's not something that happened every day. We had really good days. Mm-hmm. Some days, we were happy, really, really happy. And then some days it was really, really, really bad. Mm-hmm. I remember going to church with a black eye. Right. And the amount of makeup it takes to cover a black eye, I tell you. And having, to wear my shades and things of that nature. And I remember those things, and I remember how it felt. But I let's take it back. We were talking about slavery. And so the slave master would string him up. And so he had no power. And he felt powerless in the situation. Even today, a black man or a black woman or a black man or a white woman, they can get stopped by the police, and the police can basically do what he wants to his woman while he stands there. He can either stand there and let it happen or get shot. One of the two. So just to let us know that he's not the one in control. So some way in his psyche, some men want to let reinforce the fact that I am in control, and they want to be in control somewhere, and they find it their outlet with their woman. But that is not an excuse. That is by no means an excuse. Help is available. There should never be a time where you want to put your hands on anyone. There should never be a time where you get that mad, where you can hurt or even kill the person that you love. And you have to sit in jail and wonder why did I do that? How did that happen? Did I lose you, Delia? How did that happen? And I want to say that to any man who suffers from rage or anger, that I will make some phone numbers available for you also. You also can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and they do have resources for you. There are resources here in Minneapolis, in Illinois, across the country. That domestic violence hotline is not just for women. It's for women and men who are seeking help in any situation. And I don't want to forget men who are being abused, because there are men who are, I just have never been a man, and then in a situation where I've been abused or abused men, so I can't really speak to it.
Yeah, and most men that most men that have been abused, they grow up and they act out the same thing. There is something in Minneapolis too called the Domestic Abuse Project, and that's for men and women. So you can go as couples if you like, to get the therapy and the counseling that you need. And I wish I had that when I was going through it, because it's not that I didn't want to. It's not that I didn't love my husband or did not want to be with him or raise a family with him. I wanted the abuse to stop. So if I had the resource of, hey, let's get some counseling, let's get to the root of this thing, let's see, what we can do to get past it, it probably would have been a little bit more helpful. So, because, families don't necessarily want to break up because of this, so they need the resources and the help to kind of help families stay together. The Black man has already been ripped from their family, years ago. So it's time to see, hey, what's going on? How can we fix this?
Yes. How can we heal some of these wounds? Wounds are generational, because we still, as a people, we still suffer from post-slavery trauma. There's still trauma going on, and we're still trying to figure that all out ourselves, in the Black community. But not only in the Black community is this trauma going on, there's still trauma going on. There are white women who are being abused right now. Every Black women, Caucasian, Indian women, all.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We're all, they're all being abused, right?
And I can only speak to the reason, the trauma of Native Black Americans. But I know that this is happening because I talk to women. I discuss this with women. I can't say that this is just us, because it's not. I want to see a time and a place where all women and all children live in a place where they don't have to fear, that they're not scared. And if you're a child and you just happen to stumble upon this, I want to let you know, if you're being abused, if you're being hurt, if you're being harmed or touched in any way that's uncomfortable for you, I want you to let somebody, some safe space, somewhere that's safe for you, to let them know, even if you have to get in contact with me, Minister Toya Woodland, let them know that this is happening, or Miss Delia Elliot, let us know that this is happening, because there is hope. And we don't want to see any child, any woman, anyone being abused or hurt, because you should not have to live in fear. I don't want to see.
Toya, this is the most dangerous time for children right now, and their parents, because of what's going on with the COVID-19.
Yes.
And we're have to shelter in space. This is the most dangerous time for us, for victims right now and their children, because children would probably usually be at school, but now they're caught in the mask of it. You know what I mean? And also, victims, they can't get out there. And then the perpetrator is using this as a tactic. Oh, they're already isolated, but now, hey, don't go outside because you're going to bring the virus back. Or, you know what I mean? So they're using it as a tactic. So they're isolating them more and more. So this is the most dangerous time right now with the pandemic going on. However, domestic violence is an epidemic. It goes on every single day. So I don't know if you want me to share now, but there's ways you can still call right now. You can still get out of the relationship, you can escape right now if you need to. There's ways. The lines are still open. Domestic lines are still open. Some shelters are still open, and they're making arrangements, for women to come. There's a way. There's a way. So yeah.
And I would love to like start a fund. I'm gonna put some more thought into it, but to start a fund that we can raise money for women who may need temporary shelter. Um, to escape that abuse, because domestic violence calls have gone up 30% since across America since this has happened. And can you imagine being trapped in a place? And I almost have tears in my eyes because I remember some things. But can you imagine being trapped in a place with someone who wants to hurt you all the time? Like, you would get a reprieve if you were at work or if they were at work, but you're not getting, there's no reprieve because we're trapped at home. And now they can keep your family away because you're supposed to be doing the social distancing, and he can use that. Oh, your family can, your mom can't come over, your sister can't come over. We don't know if they got the virus. They're not going to affect my kids and things of that nature. So
right. So there goes your support system. No support system. It's out the door. So I get that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and even trying to, to communicate with them on the phone while he's there. It's hard to talk on the phone when your abuser is sitting right there looking at every word you say or monitoring every word you say. So I want to let you know that if things are overwhelming at home, grab your babies and find yourself the nearest police station, fire station, anybody that's a safe place that you can get to, that you can. And I want to say this to any police officer that is working: stop making women feel like they were volunteers. No one volunteers for this. They're victims, and they should be treated as such. They should be treated as such. No one signs up to be abused by anyone. No one signs up for abuse. So when a woman reports abuse, treat her as if she has been victimized and not as if she signed up or she's a volunteer for this abuse. I needed to say that because I've had that experience where police officers actually make you feel like you did something wrong by calling them.
Well, police officers, to me, are just not trained properly. They don't know how to even work with the mentally ill either, So, but that's a whole nother discussion. I digress. But I did want to pop in here for a minute to acknowledge everybody who is joining us right now, who has listened to us. Daphne Brown, as well as Sierra. And then we do have a question from Lynn Parrott. And is asking you guys a question. Studies show that group couple therapy is not as effective as one-on-one. What is the name of the project you referred to, Delia, Elliot, Cheatham? I guess it's for Delia.
Yeah, it's domestic abuse project, and you're not together. You can go to it separately. From what I hear, you can also go. You don't have to go with the perpetrator or with your mate. You can go separately, but it's for men and women. So hopefully that answered the question.
Mm-hmm. You want to add to that, Minister Toya?
Well, as far as you can be seeking help while he's seeking help, like Al-Anon, because the people who suffer from domestic violence, victims of domestic violence or sexual abuse or physical abuse, tend to be codependent. So there is a need for counseling. There's a need for codependency counseling, for counseling that would rebuild your self-esteem, rebuild your faith in yourself, in the world, and people in general. So there is a need for you to seek counseling. It makes no sense for him to get better and you not get better, because you're going to continue to want. You're going to continue to be dramatic and bring the drama, and he's trying to get better. So because you need to be needed, you need that to feel that sense of codependency and to be the stable one in your eyesight. So it's imperative that when he's getting counseling, yes, you should get counseling too, whether it's from a domestic violence project, your minister, your pastor. I would say the pastor, because usually they go to school and it's a section in classes where they talk about counseling, family counseling, things of that nature. no matter where it's from, I would suggest that you go through that counseling. And then maybe once you guys have completed counseling separately, coming together and doing some couples therapy, marriage counseling, or things of that nature. Because even though the physical abuse is gone, then we have to deal with the way we talk to each other, how we,
Absolutely.
Whether or not we're vomiting up on our partner. And when I say vomit up on our partner, we're abusing them verbally with our mouths, because women do it. Victims do it as well as perpetrators. So we want to get to the root and do some real family healing, if that's what you want to do. If that's what you feel can happen. A lot of women just want to remove themselves right now. Let me, and work on that later. But I say if you're unsafe, get safe first.
Delia, give me the name of it again so I can type it in as a banner for Lynn.
It's called Domestic Abuse Project. It's in Minneapolis.
Domestic
Franklin, right?
Abuse Project. Okay. Yeah. Do you have a website for them?
You can go You can go on Facebook or their website. You just tap in Domestic Abuse Project.
Okay.
Probably domesticabuseproject.org or something like that.
Okay. So I put it as a banner, and hopefully that answers. I think that she's asking some more questions here. Let's see here. It says, Delia.
All the questions.
I'll show it. Delia, Elliot, Cheatham, can you share your story with us?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Sarah Hamilton.
Okay.
I rarely share the details of the story of being abused. But like I said earlier, you probably wasn't on here, but it started way before I even got into a relationship with my husband. It started as a child. And like I said, abuse happens in all aspects of when you're being raised. So I was conditioned to it, not, told that I would never amount to anything, told that, calling names, being locked in the closet. I never shared that with anybody, things of that. So that was abuse. But as a child, you don't see that at first as being abuse. You just feel like, okay, this is my family. This is how we do. This is the norm. So is the norm to me. So when I got of age to be a teenager and go out and get into relationships and things like that, I met a man who I fell in love with. And the first time that he abused me or slapped me or hit me, I felt like, oh, okay, that's love. I mean? That's what I've seen growing up. So, I didn't recognize it as domestic abuse. I didn't even know what that was until I got out of the relationship with my ex-husband. So I do want to say that it's very impactful, and it affects your children, and how it shapes them, because it shaped me that way. So it affects how it shapes your children and things of that sort. So I just lived not a good life of being a victim of domestic abuse. I don't want to take too much of the time, but I do want to share that how I got out of it. And I remember I was so deep into it that I had, oh my gosh, my phone is trying to down me. I wanted to commit suicide. And I remember sitting on the bed on the 15th floor in Stateway Gardens in Chicago, Illinois. And I was going to take my life because I was tired of feeling depressed, and my children not seeing, me not giving them 100% of me. So if it was no bars on the window, I would have jumped. And I heard a small voice from God say that, you know what? No, you shall not die. You shall not die. I'm going to get you out of this. I remember God telling me he was going to get me out of it. And so it might sound crazy, but the next day, for a person looking, okay, the next day, I was asking God, I thought you was going to get me out of this. It's still happening. It's still happening. Years later, I was still in the relationship. But I do want to say that God, he kept his promise. He made a way of escape for me years later. And I did get out of the relationship. I'm moving kind of fast because I know we don't have a lot of time. I don't want to take up a lot of time. I have another. I actually have another panel to do like at 6 o'clock. So so this question is for me.
But we had a question before Sarah's question. Lynn
Yeah.
wanted to know.
Okay.
Um, Lynn's doing a dissertation on domestic violence of Christians, and so I wanted to address that. Um, being 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 a Christian and being a survivor of a domestic violence, it's hard to let people know that what you're going through. You know, it's hard to go to the church. We don't talk about it in the church like that. It's not
It's
something
taboo. It's really taboo in some of the churches. Yeah.
a lot. Well, I think that with Delia and I think that us being so freely and talking about it, at least with our pastor, it has become like something that we can talk about, or something that we can address with him, or with other people in the church. But growing up, you never heard anyone talk about abuse, and I know I saw it every other day in my house, but that was nothing that was discussed in the church. It was nothing that was preached about, nothing that was taught, nothing that was said. And still today, you rarely hear people who are going through domestic violence talk about it in the church, because I know I didn't come to church and say, "Oh my God, I went home today and my husband hit me, or I was choked, or whatever had happened that day." Can you imagine being in church and raising your hands in the sanctuary and praising God, and then going home and being beaten by your spouse, and then not being able to tell anybody about it? Because and I was a minister, just coming into my ministry. So, and I believe in as I became stronger in my ministry, I became stronger in myself, and was able to walk away. But it's hard being a Christian woman, or even, I don't know how it is for a man, but being a Christian woman and being abused, and feeling like you have nowhere to turn, no one to talk to in the church, because of the shame and the guilt, because it must be your fault. The devil is punishing you because this is happening to you. What did you do that made? I actually did tell someone one time that my husband hit me. She was like, he was just playing. No, he wasn't. He wasn't playing. She was like, in other words, she was saying, get over it. That might happen again, and so after that, I was scared to talk about it. I just didn't
Can
talk
I
about
share? Can I share my part of the versus the church? The church.
it. Mhm.
So when I was raised in the church, however, um of course I backslided, and even during the abuse, I was still trying to take my children to church in Chicago before we moved to Minnesota. But I just want to I've been in the church home, the church I'm in now, for many years, so that's the only place I could talk about. And I know when I first got there, I was just getting out of my abusive relationship, and it was very hard for me, and it was hard for me to talk about, is because I didn't know who to trust. When you're in an abuse relationship, you're isolated, you're threatened if you tell anybody or talk to anybody about this, what's going to happen. So when I first got there, I had a wall up, and I didn't want nobody to talk to me. I didn't want nobody to say anything to me, because I didn't know if you were going to say the wrong thing to me and hurt my feelings. I was really at a place in my life where it's like I was in this deep dark hole, and I wanted nobody to say anything to me. Okay. um so but to but right now, I have known that that was the best place that I could ever be, because I've learned so much and so many things, and people have poured into me indirectly. They don't even know, what I mean, that helped me to become the woman that I am today in God, and with His help. So although it may be a little taboo in the churches, and hopefully that they will talk more about it, as time goes on, it has been addressed in our church or talked about, because we had a panel. So but it's really something that's not very easy to talk about. It's not really something easy to bring up. But I just want to say, um, but where I am today, if I had not, found God, I would not have known my worth. So you learn a lot. So I hope that somebody is listening out here that can get something out of this. That once you learn your worth and know who you are and find out who you are, not just in yourself but in Christ, then you will make different decisions. You will let the Holy Spirit lead you. To and different relationships, and and things of that sort. So I don't want to go on no more. We got more questions.
But let me
So
add
hopefully
this.
that helps somebody.
We don't want to, okay, so like being married in the church is a big thing. Like it's a, we just always say they have the married couples retreat, and you have the married couples this and the married couples that, and it all sounds really good. And especially, I didn't want to get divorced because I didn't want to be a single minister, right? I didn't know how that was going to go over with people when you get divorced until I start seeing other people get divorced. But I didn't want to get divorced because I felt like I was just going to accept this and try to work it out on my own, because I wanted to stay in the will of God. I wanted to. I didn't want to get divorced. And people will tell you, well, you shouldn't get divorced. Actually, there's a couple in my church that's been married for a long time and they're not even together. So I said, well, if they can stay together, then I should stay with my husband, because I was confused, right? I was torn between getting divorced or not being married in the church as a minister. Now, as a lay member, I felt like that might have been okay. But once I became a minister, I felt like, oh, I shouldn't get divorced. That's taboo. People are going to talk about me. But it was only when my bishop said, what is it that you want to do? Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired? The church releases you. And they physically, they really had to say that to me. Both my bishops at my church had to tell me that. My pastor and my and my other bishop, I can't think of it right now, the term that we call our old pastor, but what do we call him? My other bishop at my church, but they both had to tell me that in order for me to feel like I could be free. And I'm not saying that I had to take man, but I felt like they knew enough about the word, and they had a strong enough relationship for God. And these were my elders, and these are my under shepherds, so I could believe that I could be free, because they said, finally, somebody said, you don't have to live like that anymore. And I left, and it took a lot. It took a lot for me to get divorced, because I really just did not want to. Not just for appearances, but I just didn't want to. I had told God that I was going to stick and stay and try to make it work, but sometimes he knows. He knows. Sarah wants to know, what would be your top 3 suggestions for a person looking to escape an abusive situation? Some of the things that we already talked about.
Have an escape plan. Call the 1-800 number that you see, and have a support system. That's just 3 things. It's more. So if you want me to elaborate on it, let me know.
What should the escape plan include, Delia?
Okay. So times have changed, and now we have technology. But an escape plan should be, like, for instance, if you're planning to leave your abuser, the predator, you want to have a safe place to put things. You always want to have duplicate of things, of your social, of your birth certificate. Even if you don't have duplicates, you want to put that stuff in a safe place. So when it's time to leave, that you can just grab your bag and go. That's the most important things that you need, like your ID, your birth certificate, your social security card, your children's, things like that, shot records, or whatever you might need. So you want to have that stuff ready to go. You want to have, like I said, support system, someone that you can share with, that you trust, that you're planning to leave, so that they can be there and lead you on, or kind of help you escape. Call the hotline. If you're going to go that route, call the hotline. They also put things in place too for and resources to help you leave. What else is there? Yeah, but the thing about it, I want to say this, because Toya, you said earlier, you said if you want to leave, in other words, you told them to leave. But the thing about it is, if you leave, you cannot go back, because most victims, that's the most dangerous time, when you leave. Okay, because your abuser they're angry. They're gonna either hunt you down, or when you come back, you might not live to see the next day. So you want to be careful when you leave, and do not go back. Make a plan in your mind. Make your mind up to go, and don't come back. So
And
Hopefully that
like I
answers the
said
question.
earlier, 58% of women who leave do end up returning back to their abusers because they don't have a plan, because they have nowhere to go,
Right.
and with no.
And most of them that return back to their abuser, they get killed. They die.
Yeah,
So
34 women in Minnesota lost their lives last year
yeah.
at the hands of
Mhm.
their abuser. I don't know around the country, but I do know that here in Minnesota, 34 women, and from what I Googled, have lost lost their lives in 2019 at the hands of their abuser. So death is a reality. Being being hurt, being killed, being maimed, becoming disabled like I was by your abuser is a reality. Um, I think it was Sarah. One day I saw Sarah at the fair and I was in my wheelchair. And my abuser was pushing me in my wheelchair. And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I don't think she had ever seen me in my wheelchair, but I ended up in that wheelchair because of the physical abuse that I suffered. And now my blood pressure doesn't go over when I stand. It doesn't raise over 60 over 40 all the time. Like I have a walking blood pressure of 60 over 40. It's only by God's grace that I do the things that he allows me to do. Um, and I think that he allowed me to go through that, allowed me to be able to do the things that I do so that I can be here to help somebody else and to let somebody else know that this doesn't have to happen to you. This doesn't have to happen. You don't have to suffer like I suffered, or, and to say that we need you to, we need a plan. And I think what I did was I went, I first of all I put my abuser in jail. I'm sorry. I had to call the police. I had to get a restraining order. I had to make I moved while he was in jail because they give out real time for men, for men who abused women in the state of Minnesota. So I had to do the necessary footwork to make sure that I was not being abused. And even when he was in jail, and Delia, you can attest to this, I still went to go see him every day. I still went to go visit him every day while he was in jail. And he was in jail because for putting his hands on me. Right. So even though the physical abuse had stopped, even though once there was still that dependency. I for some reason I just could not let go of that. And it's a syndrome. I forget the name of it, but where we find ourselves attached to our abuser and not able to let go. Yeah, it was really hard. It was very hard. Darnisha says a lot of men and women come from dysfunctional homes and may continue to cycle into their relationships. Yeah, and that's usually how it
Well,
happens.
yeah. Like I said, they're conditioned to it. And they continue the cycles because they don't have an outlet or they don't know a way out. They haven't went to any type of therapy or even so I believe that's why it continues. That's why the cycle continues. So even with my program and the group and just talking about this and bringing awareness, I want, let's get to the root of, where it comes from. So that's how the cycle can be broken if we get to the root of it, you know, and then incorporating the word of God. I can never leave that out because that's my way of life. That's my way of living. And you incorporate the word of God in this and the Bible, then everything will come after that. So yeah.
So I want to So when I get to Congress, let's talk about when I get to Congress, I plan on introducing a bill called Fear No More, because I believe that no one should ever have to live in fear, like I said before. And what that bill consists of, and Delia and I have been talking about a way to put this together for years. Like what it consists of is having resources, actual resources for women, like funds set aside by the Department of Human Services that would allow women to be put into allow subsidies for women who are transitioning out of domestic violence, domestic abuse issues or sexual abuse issues. Because let me say this: you can be sexually abused and be married. You can be married and be raped. Like if you can be married and be abused. being married doesn't necessarily give a person a right to tell for them to physically take something from you after you say no. I just wanted to put that out there and let people know that you can be married and still be raped in your marriage. And that's really controversial. But if you say no and someone takes something from you, that's still rape. I ain't stop saying go out and report your husband. I'm just saying that this happens. But
You
you're right.
should report your
Yeah,
husband, or
yeah,
you should report and you should leave. That's power and control. Nobody has to stay in relationships like that. It doesn't matter if it's your husband, your boyfriend. Leave. I mean, it's it's
yeah.
not worth it. You do not have to be raped by the hands of somebody who claims to love you, somebody
Loves
who's
you.
supposed to take care of you.
Provide.
So
And it protects you. How are you protecting me? Who I need protection from you. And so if I need protection from you, then why is it that I'm staying here? But Fear No More would actually offer women opportunities to transition out of these abusive relationships for real, where they can get a fresh start, where they can provide subsidies, because I believe domestic violence and being in domestic situations is a health issue. I believe it causes mental, physical, anxiety, and all kinds of stress.
yeah,
And it costs the government a lot of money for us to continue to go to the doctor for our medical issues, for broken bones and things of that nature. It would cost a whole lot less money for us to take for Medicare, or for us to treat this as a medical issue and have Medicare or Medicaid, our state and local Medicare programs pay subsidies for rent for women transitioning out of the hands of abuse, and offering them a real chance at life, offering them vocational training, link partnering up with jobs and community colleges that would help to train you into a better field. And it's not just low income women. There are women. I knew a lawyer who was making good money, who was in an abusive relationship and did not know how to get out. We want to make it so that that women are actually have a real chance of either transitioning on where she in the state that she lives, or being able to move to another state, and along with that, offering them counseling for what they have been through, and resources, and resources where they can talk to other women, like the women in
absolutely.
Delia's support group, how and talk and have that support. Because when you're doing this by yourself, you will go back. A lot of women that can get out won't get out because they do it by themselves. But we want to offer you real
Right.
support, real transition, and I'm going to make it my business. And I promise to Jesus that I'm going to do my very best to make the laws that stricter and harsher for those who are perpetrators of abuse. A young woman just got murdered not too long ago, right a few days before her book was coming out on domestic violence.
Wow.
And her abuser had been in jail before for domestic violence. You have to go to jail, 3 or 4 times before you can be a felony? No, there should be a felony the minute you put your hands on someone else's child. The minute that you hurt someone else's child, they get more time for beating a dog than you would for beating your spouse, or beating or putting your hands on another, committed domestic terrorism with the person you live with. That's not fair. So I promise, and this is, oh my God, to make sure that the laws match the crime, that the punishment is suitable for the crime. And not only that, I do want to see those who perpetrate abuse receive counseling, but you have to be in a place where you need to think about what it is that's going on with you, what makes you do the things that you do, and you have to be separated from society from a time so that the person that you hurt can heal while you're getting healing. And that's just my belief. And I'm sorry if it contradicts everything I've ever said about mass incarceration, might not be necessarily incarcerated. You can be in a mental hospital. I don't know, but I'm still working that part out. But I do want to see it be a felony to commit domestic terrorism on your spouse or your mate.
Toya, before we you wanted to talk about why women stay, but before we go on to that, Lynn Parrott has a comment, and I just want to say I'm sorry about the loss of your daughter. It takes real bravery to even get on here to, for what you're doing too, because you said turned your pain into passion, and you open up your um, your organization. So I truly understand that. It takes a lot of courage and gut. I still get nervous and shaky when I talk about it, because it takes real courage because it's such a shameful and hurtful thing that you have to go through. And most people don't understand. And they say, well, I would have left. And why didn't you leave? And, why did you stay? So we're going to talk about that, right, Toya? Why do women stay? And I can share my reasons of why I stayed.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, a couple of reasons. I was a teenager, so FYI, it can happen to teens. It can happen to young people at a young age. You get into these relationships with young boys in high school, and you play fighting and hitting and all that stuff, and you think it's innocent, but it's not. I don't think anyone should put their hands on each other. So that's one of the reasons. I was a young woman, had 5 kids by the age of 23 years old. And 4 of the children was his biologically. Staying in a low income apartment. Mind you, I met him at 17 years old. So I dropped out of school. I had already had my first daughter. So I stayed because I'm like, where am I going to go? So it's lack of education, no money in the bank. I had a job, but I didn't have enough money to say, hey, I'm going to take all this money. We're going to go. And I didn't have the knowledge too. I wasn't even thinking about necessarily leaving. I was established in my own apartment. Everywhere I went, he lived with me. So I'm like, why do I gotta leave my place? And on top of that, this is my kid's dad. Why? I don't want to break up the family. So that's some reasons that women stay as well. So yeah, no high school education, none of that. And I stayed. Another reason too is because I wanted the relationship to work. I didn't want, I wanted my family to work. We had the honeymoon state. So like Toya said, it doesn't happen every single day, but it happens. So when it doesn't happen, it's like, okay, maybe it's not going to happen again. Maybe he's changed. Maybe he's done. He's tired. But you look up and it's happening again. So. And then they go away for a little while, and then you let them back in, because at that time, they bring you roses. I'm not sure if you ever heard of the poem, He Brought Me Roses or He Brought Me Flowers, because now it's the makeup time. It's the honeymoon state. I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, and things like that. So that's reasons, could be a couple of reasons why others stay, and that's reasons why I stayed. Did we lose Toya?
I don't know.
So yeah. So if there's any more questions, please ask your questions. I don't know. I think we're having technical difficulties here. I can't hear either of the presenters. Lynn Parrott says, that is what I'm finding. Women want to stay in the will of God and not get divorced. Yeah, absolutely. That was my thing too. I actually divorced my abuser. And I felt that was the safest way for me to go to get out of it. And actually, I didn't divorce him. I divorced him because he committed adultery. And that was something that I found out. So that is the reason I divorced my abuser. So but from what I hear, sometimes people, in the church, they're saved and they're in issues like this. They will divorce their they won't divorce. You can separate and not divorce. So I don't know if I answered that question for you, but for me, I divorced. So, and I believe that was God's way of escape for me, because He doesn't want you in a situation of where you are threatened. Your life is being threatened daily. I don't believe that God wants you in anything like that. So if there's any questions, please ask while I'm waiting for the presenters to get back on. It's just called battered women syndrome. Mm. I don't know too much about it. Thank you. I give all glory to God. It could be battered women syndrome. Like I said, most women are conditioned to it as children, and then they grow up, and that's what they know, and that seems like the norm to them. And like I said, I didn't even know that I was in an abusive relationship until after I got out of it, and people were telling me. I didn't even know it had a name, but it was just what I knew. And although it was painful and to go through, and it affected me and my children in a horrific way, it was just something that I knew. So yeah, to God be the glory. To God be the glory. He's turned a negative around to a positive now, and I can share my story and tell others about it, and help them to get the courage and the boldness and the willingness, to get out of it as well. Not sure if she hears me.
So we are having some technical difficulties with Minister Toya coming back in. I'm going to add her. She's a green screen. Toya, say something and see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
You can go ahead and just change your picture or do something with that so it's not a green screen, but you're still with us. I don't know what happened.
Well, I can't see Delia either, so I can't see the questions though. I wanted to answer her question, the question before that. I just don't remember what it was about Christian women. What was the question she asked before that, Delia? While I was
about
Christian women divorcing their husbands.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, that was a big thing. That was a huge, and someone just told me not to be too personal, but you cannot help but to be personal when it comes to this issue. It is a delicate, sensitive issue, and it's something that I lived through, and I survived, and I came out on the other side. So when I tell my story about when I talk about domestic violence, it allows other people to open up about domestic violence. I would not want to share with someone about what I had gone through if I didn't know that they had gone through it either. So if you have not been through domestic violence, please don't give advice. I just wanted to share that because yes, it's personal and it's hard to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to mention it, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to let people know that there is a way out. But
and the thing about it, Toya, when you share, people need to understand when our stories, our personal stories, are being shared, it's actually helping someone else that's going through the same thing. So that's why we're so it takes a lot of courage to do so. It's not something that we just want to talk about, but it's something we bring the awareness so that other people can get knowledge of it, so that they can find a way out well.
Right, and then it allows them to say, "Oh my God, sometimes you might appear like you everything's together. Now things are better. Now things are great. My life is great. I woke up yesterday morning so happy I didn't even know what to do. Right, I was like, "Is this my life? This is my life." Right, but
right, because there is a good after abuse. Some women think that, okay, what am I going to do? Once they get out of the abusive relationship, it's like a breath of fresh air. But what do I do next? How do I get my life back on track? How do I rebuild? Sometimes they don't know, so they need help. They might need a support group. They might need someone to talk to, a therapist or anything. But there is life after abuse. So that is why, I share my story. That is why we share our story. And it gives other women the courage to share their story, because it's a lot of women that really would like to share and talk to someone else about it. Mm-hmm. But it's the ridicule that they get from other people. It's the downplay. It's the, don't get so personal. But the thing is, they need to share that so that they could, that they need to share it.
Yeah, because when you're being abused, your voice is being silenced.
Absolutely.
You
Yep.
can't talk to anybody about it. You can't tell anybody about it. And I do realize that I'm running for public office, but I am also a human being. I'm also a woman who has had experiences. I am not, please don't confuse me for someone who has had it all together all of my life, because I have not. But I do care about the people of Minnesota, and I care about the people in my district, and I care about the women in my district who are going in this state, who are going through what I went through. And if you need to talk about it, if you need to hear me talk about it, if you need to look at me today and say, oh my God, things can get better, and I can get there too, then that's okay. Yes, I believe in putting the women here who are suffering in Minnesota first when it comes to changing laws and when it comes to making help available to them. I do recognize that I'm a minister, and even as a minister, they say, well, Toya, you talk too much. Okay, that's fine. I understand that, but this is who some things I probably shouldn't share, but this issue right here is so personal and so hard for people to talk about that unless they hear us talk about it, Delia, people won't want to open up. And if that makes me a bad politician or a bad minister, then I'm so sorry. But I can't take, it's my experiences that has led me to this point, have led me to want to help others, want to be your congresswoman, want to put you, make sure that women in this state, in this district are safe and prospering and living healthy lives and have children where they don't have to be scared to come out of their room when they hear the voice. Lynn said, what I find is women want to stay in the will of God and not get divorced. And that was my struggle too, Lynn. Delia, are you still there?
I am.
That was my struggle too. When I was married, I didn't want to get divorced because I felt like being a minister that if I got divorced, it would be really taboo and what would people say? And is God okay with this? And all of that. And that was a big struggle. And I stayed in that marriage for a long time and tried everything that I could think of. And ultimately, I didn't leave him because of the abuse. I left him because he, like Delia said, because he committed adultery. It was as if, okay, you can be beat up, but you can't get cheated on. I don't know, but yeah.
But the thing for me is, the thing for me is, I always try to make the marriage work. Not even for the sake of the children, but for the sake of the commitment. That we had, and I did. And that's one of the reasons that I even married him, is because I wanted to be in the will of God.
Right.
But so that's why I say, for me, my story, everybody has a different story. I believe that God gave me that way of escape. He promised me years ago that I wouldn't have to suffer too much longer in that relationship. So that was my way out, when he committed adultery, because he wanted to go and be over at this other woman's house. Okay. I'm like, okay, this is the way out. This is the way to start locking up doors, changing locks, putting his clothes out, all that kind of stuff. So I thank God for that.
And then, God does not want us unhappy. He said, if you delight yourself in me, I would give you the desires of your heart.
Absolutely.
That if I came to give you life and give it to you more abundantly, he said that what shall separate us from the love of God? So God loves us immensely. God doesn't want to see us hurting. God doesn't want, the will of God is being safe in his arms, being at peace. He said, take my yoke because my yoke is light. Right. So we talk about the will of God, but women, we never look at it from a way where God wants us to be wholly free and freely whole. Right. He wants us to be happy. He didn't want us to be miserable on this earth. So being in the will of God is being able to praise him and to love on him and accept his abundance of love and knowing who we are. We are a peculiar people, right? We're made in his image. He came so that we can have life more abundantly. Abundant life includes happiness, includes freedom, includes the only person that I should fear is God, right? I should have the fear of God in my life, not the fear of man. I should fear no man. What can man do to me? But so I think that living in the will of God is not being is not fearing, submitting my will to another individual. I think that submitting my will unto God, as in when it talks about, being submissive to your husband, but we do that as unto our God, not oh, you my king and my master and you are God. Which a lot of people, we get it confused sometimes. And I know in the Bible says that the Bible doesn't want to get you don't want you to get divorced, but the adultery does free you. That is the one thing that I do know, that if your husband commits adultery, you can get divorced in the Christian church. Ms. Toya, please let me know how I can assist you in any way on this journey towards justice. This bill has to come into fruition. In Jesus, thank you. Thank you. Because I said that even if I do not make it to Washington, and I believe in Jesus, I believe that Jesus is going to get me there. But in the event that I don't, I still want this bill to come into fruition, because it has to happen. We have to be able to be safe in our homes. And please connect with me in Messenger. My phone number is on my Woodland for Congress page. That's my personal number. You can call me and we can talk. I am very accessible, and I will always, to the best of my ability, be accessible no matter where God takes me in life. Because first of all, I'm first a minister before I'm anything. I'm first a woman of God and a woman of peace. And in my party, that's why I love the Green Party so much, because they believe in nonviolence against women. They believe in they're a peaceful organization. They believe in nonviolence, and so I'm really, that's one of the main reasons, that and that they support full and complete reparations, right? And grassroots democracy. So many things about the Green Party attracted me to them, but when the nonviolent type of nonviolent part just really brought me to wanting to be a part of that party, because they have, I for so long I've witnessed violence, and I just didn't want to witness this. I don't want to be in a place where I can change, and I need all the help I can get. I need all the help I can get for and the bill is called Fear No More. So I'm still putting it together, and I asked Delia when I win to come to Washington with me. I don't know if she's coming or not. I asked her to help me, but we've been trying to do something together for a long time, like the domestic violence wife, for a long time, like some real tangible things that can help women.
The thing about it, the best people to present something like this is the people that experienced it. And people that have not experienced it, they have a hard time understanding it. So
yeah.
yeah.
They'll ask you how can you forgive that person? How can you still talk to them? Or how can you and I don't know why, but I do know part of that forgiveness is a part of my faith. Every day I wake up, I ask God to forgive me for those sins committed and omitted and committed. Those sins I know about and the sins I don't know about. And in the Lord's Prayer says, Lord, forgive me as I forgive those who trespass against me. Right? That doesn't mean I forgot what you did. That doesn't mean that I have to live with you or have to have you in my life, but does mean that I have to be able to not hate you. I have to be able to not hold resentment in my heart for you, and have to and understand to some point that you are a child of God, even sometimes afterwards. Because I'm not saying while I was going through this that this was possible, but afterwards, after the abuse, after you've removed yourself, I removed myself. I had to understand that this is something that that they're suffering with also, and I have to, for my sake, not for his sake, but for my sake, I have to forgive.
Yes, I have like 4 more minutes. But we had a comment from one of the watchers, Rhonisha. She commented that men are not only abusers, women are. So what do you have to say about that? Well, they say women abuse as well. Men aren't the only abusers, women abuse as well.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I don't want to make light of it. I mean, it's not as often as we physical abuse, but we are mentally and emotionally, because we are the ones that know how to hit those buttons that will hurt the ones that are closest to us. The children, our mates, we can use that verbal vomit, as I talked about earlier, and really tear into cut someone with our tongues. And that comes from being abused. that comes from years of being abused and that nature,
Or watching it, or growing up in it, or witnessing it.
or be
It
having
goes it goes both ways. Yeah.
yeah, having that done to us. You know, we become real big and bad when we on the phone, and we can tell you all about this. But yeah, before we go, I want to just talk about some of the abuse shelters that are out there. Some of the shelters, and you don't have to be vouchered in to a domestic abuse shelter. One that I know about is Harriet Tubman. It's on Lake Street. I don't want to give out addresses, but there's another one in Blaine. And if you Google domestic violence shelters or call that 1-800-9
Yep,
that
the 1-800 number will give them all the resources that they need. You don't even have to talk about it on here, but it'll give them all the resources that they need to ask for.
yes, because we don't want to let locations know where people know where they are, but there are places that will help you instantly. You don't have to be vouchered in to the state, or DHS. You can, if they have a bed, they'll take you right away. And I imagine that they're even making some accommodations, because I'm imagining that some of them are filling up.
Yeah, quickly.
Right.
But Delia, I want you to take a few minutes. At least last few minutes to tell people about your program and how they can get involved and how they can reach out to you.
Okay. Once again, well, right now, like I'm still in the process of revamping it and restarting it and trying to figure out how I can continue on with it during the COVID. However, I'm in the process of changing the name, and it's I Am Her Voice Ministries, and that's for to reach for those that do not have a voice, to speak out against domestic abuse and to help to give them that platform and to bring awareness about domestic abuse. We have a support group, empowering support group to support those victims and also survivors that's coming out of the abuse, to help them get back on track, give them the resources that they need to, to either, start school or to build healthy relationships and things of that sort. You can find me on Facebook. You can go to the page. It's under Divine Evidence Women Empowered right now, and or you can go onto my personal page, leave me a message in my inbox. That's Delia Elliot Cheatham. And my email address, also, you can go to the email address and send me a message. If you have any questions, concerns, if you know anybody who wants to come to us empowerment support group, it's divineevidencewe@gmail.com, divineevidencewe@gmail.com. I also do every October, every year, because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I have a project that I do every year where we give back to those victims and survivors of domestic abuse. So if you want to know more about that as well, you can contact me. I can give you more information. So yeah, that's what's going on so far on that page. Yep. I just want to say thank you for having me, for letting me use this as a platform, Toya, to not only tell my story, but to bring awareness and information and resources to those that's in need. So I hope I was able to help somebody on today.
Well, I want to thank you for being on, and as you know, we've been talking about this for a while, and you've been like my only confidant like over the years when this is concerned. I don't know if I've talked to anybody as much as I talked to you about the things that actually were happening to me or had happened. I told you a little late, but I think that you were the one who I confided in more than anybody else. And I thank you for coming on. I thank you for being a friend, like the Golden Girls. And I think, I thank God for the work that I see us doing in the future towards helping women, and helping women in a real substantial type of taking your life back type of way. And
absolutely,
we've been talking about this for a while. Like we said, many days and Caribou Coffee, trying to figure out how we could do this. But
absolutely,
God is giving me this vision for this bill, and I think that it can become a reality, one way or the other. And you can reach me at my website, www.woodlandforfifthdistrict.com. Also on my Facebook page.
District.org.
I'm sorry, .org. I do have and then I have www.woodlandforcongress.com. I have two websites. And on my Woodland for Congress page, ICIL Ministries, I have a ministry page. I have a ministry group called Bruised But Not Broken, where you can sign community things, sermons from various ministers. Sometime I'll come and pop on and do a sermon, sermons from my church and things. If you just need an uplifting word, please like my page, share it with your friends. I hope that we were able to help somebody today. I hope that that more people will turn out to help us in our efforts to change the lives of women and children who are in, and even men who are in these abusive situations. And I'm sorry if I share too much of myself with anyone, please forgive me. However, I just don't know how to deliver this message without letting people know who I am and where I come from.
All right. Before I get off of here, I'm gonna have to hang up, but I just want to say, do not be unapologetically you when you share your story. Those that I want to encourage to share, know that also settle for safe. This is about settling for safe, and know that a woman doesn't know how powerful she is until she has been silenced. So speak out, share your story, tell somebody. That will give somebody the key to open up their cage. So I got to get out of here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, thank you.
Love. I love you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, love you too. Y'all be blessed.
Yeah.
All right. Bye
Thank
bye.
everybody who joined us on Facebook. We have Woodland for Congress. Go to the Facebook page. We also need donations and we need volunteers. Toya Woodland is going to be looking for signatures in the 5th district because she is running as a third-party candidate for the Green Party. She just recently received the Green Party endorsement. Yahoo!
Yay.
For you, yes. And so to be on that ballot, November 3rd, we need signatures. So we need you guys to really help us out as much as possible. It is a grassroots campaign for the betterment of Minnesota. We can have better representation than what we have right now in here. So please go to the website woodlandfor5thdistrict.org. You can donate. You can also sign up as a volunteer. And you can also go to woodlandforcongress.com. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to call us. We are at 952-955-9494.
And Lynn, thank you so much. And I will be going to Ken. I have Audible books, and so I hope that you're on there because it has I have a subscription to Audible, and I will be looking for your book, Pennies from Heaven. And thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for being involved after your loss. I think anytime a mother loses a child, and she can still be involved in the fight by which she lost her child in, that's a strong individual, and only those who are called by God to do that work and be in that position, who he has strengthened to do that, are able to do that, because everyone couldn't do that if that was their child. And so I love you, and I thank you, and I love you all. Like I say, I'm a minister first. So if you need prayer, if you need to talk to somebody, if you need to share with me, hit me in my inbox. We can pray together. We can talk together, and we can love on each other. And so you have a blessed week, and I will talk to you the same bat time on the same bat channel next Wednesday, 3:00. Join us. I don't know what the topic's going to be yet, but please join us. And I'll let you know. Have a blessed day. Amen.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody. Stay safe. Bye-bye.